What's going on, everyone? So Clint Capella is a name that has been linked very heavily to the Lakers this offseason, and more likely than not is going to continue to be heavily linked to the Lakers this upcoming offseason. Reports have came out that Clint Capella is at the top of their list as far as like free agent centers go. They still want to pull off a trade. They still would like to kind of land that clear-cut starting level center. But Clint Capella is a guy that they really would like, right? He's 31 years old. He just turned 31, right? So he's still young enough to where you could have him for a couple years. I still think he is a very good basketball player. I just think it was kind of circumstances with Atlanta, right? Atlanta kind of went another direction, kind of went younger, right? They ended up getting Dyson Daniels, in Kagwe. He ended up kind of emerging, and they were kind of like, okay, well, let's just lean in and embrace, our young center, right? They kind of went the youthful, let's develop guys rather than like, hey, let's appease a center. That's why they were trying to trade him at the trade deadline, right? Because they were just like, this is the clear direction we're going. So I do think Clint Capella was, kind of a victim to circumstance to an extent. Now, that doesn't mean that he is the Clint Capella he was with Houston. He's definitely not that version of Clint Capella, but I still think he's a very good center, right? Ideally, as your backup, I think it would just be absolute money. I think he has the potential to be one of, if not the best backups in the league, because he's still a double-double guy. He's still one of the best offensive rebounders. And you're going to have a guy like Luka that is going, when he's on the basketball court, is just going to set him up. And he's going to set him up nicely. So I do love the idea of bringing in a Clint Capella, again, personally, in a backup role. I am not fully against, though, the Lakers bringing him in as a starter, right? And kind of doing a gap year at the center position, right? And then, bringing in maybe a younger, like a Jericho Sims I've talked about, or even like a Brook Lopez, if you kind of want to go kind of that experience, that vet, right? And kind of have that. Lakers supposedly want more of a veteran center as their backup, which is good. I've talked very heavily about that. I am all for you if you wanted to. Go get a Mark Williams, go get a Walker Kessler, go get whomever, right? If you can get a young center, fine. Go get that Sodom and boom, there's your starter. But I would also prefer a more veteran backup, a guy who's been there, done that you can, hey, it's game 7, a minute left, tie game. Right? Do I want to go with the young guy that's inexperienced, or do I want to throw in a guy like a Brook Lopez who's won championships, who's hit big shots in big games, right? Like, and also I want balance at the center position, right? Lakers have multiple young development bigs, right? Even if Jackson Hayes departs, you still have Christian Koloko, Trey Jamison, right? They have kind of the development bigs that you could bring on. If you go trade for a young center, right? Even if you trade for a Nick Claxton, I still would like a Clint Capella or a Brook Lopez as your backup, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to what is the cost for these guys? How much do you have to pay to get these guys? If you have to sell the farm to go, if they only want, you have to free up your full mid-level exception or not coming, then it's like, I'd rather just go get a Jericho Sims on a vet minimum or something like that, right? So I do think there's a lot of that. But I also, again, don't hate the idea if, Nick Claxton, right, you have to give up Dalton Connect in a first. It's like, keep Nick Claxton, right? I don't know if I mean, look, I'm holding out hope. I'm speaking it into existence. Walker Kessler, many of you I'm sure are familiar. I am big on Walker Kessler. I just don't know if the Lakers have the assets that it would cost to convince Utah to pony up to trade Walker Kessler. Same thing with like a Jalen Duren, right? Although there are things like Jalen Duren Detroit's going to have to make some options at the center position, right? They're going to have to make some decisions here. And they want apparently a floor stretching big. So it's like they already have like 3 arguably starting centers, right? They're going to go add a 4. Like at some point they're going to have to make a decision. But I don't know if they have the assets to go get like their franchise young center. Like, here you go, you're locked in. But obviously if you can, cool, great. If not, or you have to overpay, like, there's talks about like Lakers would have to overpay for Daniel Gafford, right? If you have to trade Connect and a first for Gafford, keep Gafford, right? Like if the Lakers have to overpay, I'm not against just bring in Clint Capella on your taxpayer mid-level, bring in like a Brook Lopez on a vet minimum, and let's just go there and then use your assets and see, can you get the perimeter help? Right? Lakers have more needs than just the center position. So I'm not against them bringing in a Clint Capella at the 5, right? Boom, there you go. I mean, he's exactly what the Lakers need. Big, strong, physical, interior center that can be a lob threat, run the floor, right? Block shots and rebound the basketball. Again, he's not what he was in Houston, but that's fine, right? Get through the season with that, have that stopgap year, right? Get them cheap enough, and then now use your players and assets to go. Can you go get a Herb Jones? Can you go get a, whatever, even some young guys? Can you go get a Cam Whitmore or like an Ayo Dosunmu, right? Perfect. So again, like I don't want the Lakers. My fear is the Lakers go and sign a Clint Capella, sign a Brook Lopez, and just sit on their hands and just go, all right, like we're good. Like we got the centers. What more do you guys want from us? Like that's my fear. No, like if that's how you want to address the center position, fine. I don't think we need some superstar center, right? Because again, at best, that player is only going to be the fourth option at best, because they're not going to be the option over unless you get like a Jan or something like that. But then at that point, Austin Reeves or whoever's going to go. But any center, let's say Mark Williams. Best case scenario, he's your fourth option behind LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves, right? So I don't think you necessarily, you just need somebody that can fill in the gaps, be that center that you need, that rebounds, Clint Capella, check. That can block shots, check, right? That can, be that lob threat, check. Now, he's not the versatile defender kind of defensive anchor that like a Nick Claxton would be. But, Lakers were a top defensive team for like 23 games with Jackson Hayes as their starting center, right? If you go get some perimeter, like if you go get Clint Capella as your starter, and then you go get one or two like legit defensive pieces to put alongside, I think the Lakers will be one of the better defensive teams in basketball. I'm not worried about that in that regard. So again, I'm all for bringing in Clint Capella, ideally in a backup center position. I would prefer to have him as your backup, slotted in behind, Walker Kessler, speaking into existence, or a Mark Williams or even a Nick Claxton, right? If the Lakers are able to go trade for Nick Claxton, one of the big concerns with Nick Claxton is just the weight is really slim, right? He's 215 pounds soaking wet, right? Where, you look at a guy in a Clint Capella, he's, 245 pounds, 240, 245, somewhere in that range. So he's just got more weight behind. I mean, you're talking literally 30 pounds more than a Nick Claxton, right? So I'd prefer that. Get a Nick Claxton, boom, there you go. Get a Clint Capella, he can be your, physical interior that can bang with the big boys, right? Kind of where you play Denver in the first round, right? Nick Claxton can just kind of bother and just be quick and be a deterrent. And then now you have Clint Capella coming in and just kind of banging on him, wearing him down, and then go, get that development center, right? Whether it's Koloko or somebody else, and then just kind of ride that as like your center position going into the season. But what can Clint Capella provide this team, right? Is it worth something like that? Well, on the surface, he was a 9.9 rebound guy, right? And that was with his production and minutes dropping drastically. But you look at last season, 55 games played, 21.4 minutes per game. Also, for those that may be concerned with the 55 games played 73, 65, 74, 63 the last handful of years. So that's good. Basically, since he's been with Atlanta, 55 was the fewest games he played. Again, part of that was Atlanta's direction, right? So not really too worried about it. But 21.4 minutes per game. Took 7 field goal attempts per game, shot 56% from the floor, not a floor spacing big. So not a guy that's going to take any threes at all. So he's strictly lob threat, floor running big. 2-point range, 56% on 7.1 attempts per game, EFG of 56%. Free throw shooting is his biggest knock, right? Not a good free throw shooter at all. Hack Capella is a real thing, which is why another reason you'd probably want a guy like a Brook Lopez as your backup, a guy that, hey, they're hacking Capella, spraying in Lopez, and then he can knock down free throws with confidence. Like, go ahead, foul him, right? Type thing. But 53.6% from the free throw line last year on 2 attempts. Not great by any stretch, but rebounding, right? He averaged 8.5 rebounds per game, including 3.2 offensive rebounds, right? And again, keep in mind, he did that in 21 minutes of action. So he's giving you, like I said, he's basically a double-double guy as a full-time starter, right? You look at the previous year in which he played 26 minutes per game, he actually averaged 4.6 offensive rebounds. So again, that's a year removed. So he is still one of the best offensive rebounders in basketball, which would be huge. So 3.2 offensive rebounds per game for 8.5 rebounds total, 1.1 assists. We'll round up. It's 0.6 steals, but we'll round up to a full steal, a full block, like without rounding up, literally a full block, and then 9 points per game. You look at his per 36. Again, per 36 doesn't tell you everything, but it kind of gives you an idea of like what would he look like as a full-time starter. He would be 15 points, 14.4 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks per game, right, in 36 minutes of action, or 1.6 blocks per game. Now, for those that are like, that's ridiculous, he would never be that. His first year in Atlanta, he was 15 points, 14 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 blocks, and 4.7 offensive rebounds. He exactly can be that. Like, most guys, what I think is funny is most guys you look at their like per 36 and you're like, yeah, they'll never be that, right? Like per 30, he's not going to be that, right? Clint Capella has literally been his per 36 on multiple seasons, like regularly. So now, again, I'm not expecting him to necessarily be that, but let's say in 25 minutes of action, he's a double-double guy. Let's say he's 10 and 10 with like 4 offensive rebounds, right? Add in Luka, he's probably a 14-point-a-game guy. He's probably bare minimum 14 points, 10 or 11 rebounds, right? 1.5 blocks and a steal. That's fine. Sign me up for that. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. As always, this is a discussion. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.